This is the Marketing Umbrella Podcast, where it's all about getting the information you need from successful leading marketers to build and grow your digital marketing agency. Brought to you by Itamar Shafir, founder and CEO of Umbrella, the technology platform and brand that is powering thousands of marketing agencies around the country. Find him at umbrellaus.com. Now, here's your host, Kevin Pruitt.
Welcome to the Marketing Umbrella Podcast. My name is Kevin Pruitt. I'm the host, and it is an honor to have another great guest with us today. He's a seasoned entrepreneur, sales strategist, and marketing expert with over 20 years of experience building and scaling lead generation systems for fintech and other leading organizations. He's the founder and principal consultant of his own strategy group and founder CRO at Kaleidico, where he helps startups, financial institutions, and SaaS companies develop high-converting inbound marketing and sales funnels. His expertise spans consumer direct lending, audience development, and sales automation, making him a go-to resource for companies looking to predictably fill their sales pipelines and drive revenue growth. Before diving into fintech and marketing, he served as a U.S. Air Force officer leading counter-espionage operations. Man, we're going to get into that. And building information warfare systems. Of course, he's probably going to have to kill me after he tells me. An unexpected but powerful foundation for his strategic approach to growth and competitive positioning. Today, he's a sought-after speaker, writer, and consultant who shares battle-tested insights on sales, marketing, and leadership. It is my pleasure to introduce Bill Rice to the Marketing Umbrella Podcast. Bill, thanks for joining us.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Thanks for having me, Kevin.
We did get a chance to chat just for a few minutes right before. So told him, I said, I'm going to chase some rabbits here. So he said, hey, go for it. So really looking forward to the chat today, Bill. But hey, that's a very short intro to a long life. So tell me some things that we didn't include in that, and anything you can tell us that's not, against national security, please share.
Yeah. It's always fun because I like to have that in there because it is a little bit different, from most, particularly marketing agency or founders or entrepreneur. It's a little different background, but I often preface that by it's always sexier on the outside than on the inside, and so a lot of that time was spent battling bureaucracy and trying to get operations approved. And intelligence is a sort of a slow, methodical process, but we did a lot of cool things in there, and there were some threads that I was able to sort of pull on later, both as an agency, as a founder, as an entrepreneur, but also my approach to marketing and sales as well. And kind of probably the two big components, just to kind of tie everything together and maybe explain how I came from counterintelligence to marketing, is one of the big themes that I've always focused on or took, and I think this is more of a military thing than necessarily intelligence, but sort of leading the team you were given was a big thing. We never got to do fancy interviews and Enneagram test or anything. They just handed you some troops, and you had an expectation of performance, and so we had to get the team there, and we were pretty successful in doing that. The other thing that is more related to kind of intelligence and application to marketing is just kind of the ability to build pattern recognition. So a lot of what we did in intelligence and the cool stuff that I did was this transition to kind of information warfare and moving a lot of what we did intelligence-wise onto digital platforms. So, the old intel was listening to signals intelligence. And a lot of those signals, moved to the internet in the early thing. And then as a result, we looked at patterns, and that kind of gave us indication that something was happening or something wasn't happening or who was connected to who. And so that pattern recognition, I think, and how to seek out behaviors and then influence those behaviors became part of my sort of marketing philosophy, I guess. So anyway, just a little bit to sort of tie all those things together over the last 30 years. We
were going to dive into a number of different things in this chat we're going to have today, but I kind of want to start with something that I think is really germane to the typical kind of our ideal client profile audience here that we have at the Marketing Umbrella. And really, we like to talk about MarTech. We like to talk about what's the kind of the SaaS solutions to some of the issues we're trying to solve for. And I really want you to talk about like Kaleidico and what was the itch you were trying to scratch? What was the impetus? Was this a kind of an internal product that you were building to solve a problem you had that just kind of grew into, a product or a company on its own? But I'd
Yeah.
like to just really kind of drill down right there and talk about that just for a second.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I'm kind of proud of, and I feel like that I have a little bit of aptitude with, is just kind of seeing where the market's going or where we need to go. And so, the impetus behind Kaleidico, and as most startups it started in one place, and then we had to pivot, and it ended up in another place. So, really, the idea behind that came out of at the time, between like 2000 2004, I was involved in creating an internet bank. We were in the early version, kind of like in Intel.
Well, that
We were
was
in the
early days.
Yeah, we were in the early days of the internet. Like, one of my favorite stories to tell is when I was at Deep Green Bank, to get traffic, we would, get listings on Yahoo directory. We would do partnerships with other websites and those sorts of things. And my favorite story is one of our developers came to me and he said, "Hey, take a look at this thing." And he pulled up on his browser a blank screen with a box in the middle. And he's like, "You just like put in a keyword and like you get all these results." And I'm like, "Wow, do you think people do that?" And obviously this was Google, right? So, everything changed from there, and we were on the early stages of that, and it changed the kind of the way we were doing that. So anyway, that brought on during that period, 2004 ish, brought on, or we saw the early phase of lead generation, like people buying leads. Mortgage was the leader in that, and so the opportunity that I saw for Kaleidico is all of a sudden, we're buying all these leads. We have turned the consumer into like an individual unit of delivery that you could buy, right? You could just buy a consumer, you could buy an inbound lead. And that was starting to big. I mean, the scale at which you could do that was enormous. So our first sort of thought was, we got to manage these leads, because in the early days, again, hundreds, thousands of these leads are coming in a day to a lot of these mortgage lenders who are large call centers, and they were literally working spreadsheets and manually through the computer, handing them out and stuff. So our first thing was to build a system to manage those leads, use a little bit of early kind of intelligence. It was all rules based, but we were trying to dynamically distribute those in an efficient way so that customers got feedback or responses, and people were able to convert those. Unfortunately, we had a great financial crisis that melted down all my call center clients really quickly. So we pivoted. We had seen a lot of marketing come through here, and it was the early days of that. So we pivoted to being an agency. And again, to your point of like, what itch were we trying to scratch? We're a little bit ahead of the game. And right now we're probably in the center of that game. Was the perceived need that these guys were these companies. And this is weird. There's a few industries like this where there's sales-driven organizations, and they completely become dependent on buying leads. So they don't have marketing departments. They're not running their own marketing, which is crazy to think of an organization that outsources their entire like lifeline. So my thought as an agency is we should be able to go in there and turnkey build them a marketing department that generates inbound leads. And that's been our primary business model for the last 20 years. And like I said, with the volatility in the market and again, this is not to get too nerdy in mortgage, but mortgage has had a really long cycle of high rates. And so the mortgage market thrives on refinances. And so that's just killer. So for us, it's been really good because these organizations have had to do marketing harder, and they've come to us to figure those things out. And so anyway, that's really the impetus behind Kaleidico, is just to do that hard thing for organizations that generally don't have marketing strategy or have become too dependent on buying those leads from third parties.
Right. You mentioned something that kind of struck a nerve in my mind here, to this idea of, inundating a company with leads. If I'm the company, I want somehow you to pre-qualify these, or have a rating system, or have something that says, okay, this is an 8 out of 10 lead, this is a 2 out of 10 lead, this is a whatever. So how did you build that in say early days, and maybe even how you kind of address that issue today, from a
Yeah.
non-marketing, expert here. So how do you, I guess, build trust in companies you work with that say, hey, these are high quality leads here?
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because that's believe it or not, that's a newer thing than you kind of think, right? So early on, we generate traffic, we would
Pure
generate
numbers
lead.
game.
Yeah, and it was really salespeople. Like salespeople were expected to take marketing qualified leads, which means we just did the targeting right,
Hmm.
and turn those into sales qualified leads. And then we kind of have gone through this stage where we on the marketing side are looking at quality KPIs. So when we deliver leads, we have technologies in place because it's a real problem. A lot of our leads are PPC. We're running PPC because it's just faster, and we can get the economics right, and we can get the targeting more precise than, let's say, SEO and content, even though we do that as well. So we're using a lot of tools up front to get the click fraud out, the bots out, and
Hmm.
with AI, that's only gone up. So
Right.
a big part of Google and Facebook's network, is inundated, and they do their best, but we add some extra layers and tools to try to do that. So that's become more sophisticated, and you have to do it. Like most of the clients we talk to, and they're like, I don't want to talk about PPC. I've been burnt by that. Spend lots of money. It's just because they don't understand that you have to sort out. You have to use some technology to get
Hmm.
rid of that sort of surly crowd. And then the other thing that's got more sophisticated is just being able to have technology in place to validate phone numbers and emails, contact information, right? So that's gotten sophisticated. It'll probably continue to get more sophisticated. So that's a layer that we introduce in. And then what you spoke about is probably the latest layer to start to come to the table is to look at a lead. And I talk about this a lot. Traditionally, and even still to some degree, we're looking at desirability of that lead. So the
Yeah.
characteristics, let's just take mortgage for a real example. We like high loan amounts, right? Because we get bigger commissions. We like high credit scores because they're easier to qualify. We like low loan to value, meaning the people are putting down a decent down payment because they're easier to qualify. But those are really desirability metrics. And so the way we would do that is we just kind of look at them as they come through the system, and we're dynamically sort of understanding the quality of those leads, again, from a desirability.
Hmm.
And then we're kind of feeding back in real time to those platforms those desirability scores so that they give us more of the audience that looks like that. Where it's going, sort of skating toward the puck, I think it's going to be on the marketing side, but it's also going to be on the sales side, inside of CRMs and stuff. We're seeing the introduction of what's labeled as predictive AI.
Hmm.
So
Right.
it's taking that first party data inside of the CRM, inside of organizations, which is kind of the best data. And they're looking at the characteristics of that lead that we were doing on a desirability basis, and they're truly mapping that to convertibility, what actually converted. And then that becomes the driver of the scoring system so that when that lead
Mhm.
comes in, we already know the probability of that lead. And then once we know the probability of that lead closing, we can do all kinds of interesting things around distribution and prioritization of resources and all those sorts of things. So kind of walking through the full evolution of kind of where we've been and where we're headed for that. But AI, like in a lot of things, is changing a lot. But predictive AI is actually, it's one of those things that kind of hides behind the scenes, but it's probably the most impactful thing you can introduce in your organization long before using generative AI to like whip out emails for your sales
Right.
team.
Right. No,
So
I love that. And it's interesting because one of the questions that I really wanted you to kind of drill down on, because it really is kind of the zeitgeist topic of in the whole marketing space, is around AI. And I mean,
yeah,
AI, I know AI is a very broad category,
yep,
but take a step back and go, okay, if I am a marketing agency owner, I'm trying to maybe get in the head of our audience a little bit here, but if I'm a marketing agency owner, I am absolutely, number one, I'm frustrated. Number two, I feel overwhelmed with every day. There's something new that I'm trying to catch up to. It feels like I am always running on the hamster wheel of AI, information. But what are some things that you would recommend that, hey, ignore all the broad stroke of noise here. Here's some things that you really need to focus on, moving forward in the next 18 months, 36 months or whatever. What are one or two or three, kind of key areas, specific areas that you think would really move the needle for my agency?
Yeah. So a lot of this depends on kind of what your agency is delivering. So agency is kind of a broad term. So you could be delivering. So I'll kind of focus on some of the things that we deliver, and some of the things we're doing. So if you're delivering, so in our case, we're delivering PPC, we're delivering SEO and content, and we're delivering email in the context of sort of nurturing and that sort of thing. So I think the first thing I would say is relax a little bit and breathe, because
Good first step.
yeah, because I see a lot of people rushing in and grabbing the shiny objects. I just literally before this call, I got off a call with our team where we were a little bit focused on this. Is you have to be careful of grabbing sort of those shiny objects. Again, what I always say that do your homework, because getting AI to do your homework is going to do it at the lowest, poorest level, right? So relax a little bit and make sure you're doing the fundamentals right. So if you're doing PPC, make sure you're spending a lot of time building that campaign, understanding the audience you're going after, writing a good campaign brief, delivering that sort of knowledge to your PPC managers so that they can understand the context in which they're doing campaigns. Now, AI, totally believe in ChatGPT. I use it constantly throughout the day. Use it as a companion, and you should be using it. You should be learning it. ChatGPT or Claude, whatever your kind of preferred wrapper on large language models is, use that as a colleague to vet things, to help you build campaign briefs, to help you think through sort of targeting and logic, because it has a broader level of, even 30 years into this thing, the LLM has a lot more knowledge than I do about how to write a PPC campaign brief. So do the blocking and tackling. Use that as a companion so that you can kind of have a bigger team, the LLM being the rest of that team. SEO and content, same sort of thing. We want to make sure that we're delivering good content, because, and we've seen this specifically, some of our content that was written intentionally, and again, you can write content with AI on a really good high level with a human in the system, right?
Yeah.
And so, but we're seeing, so one of the big things that everybody's focused on SEO and content is all of a sudden folks are trying to get into the LLMs, right? And we're seeing a lot of success with our older content starting to show up in the LLMs, right? Because it's just good content. Yeah. It's written in such a way it's answering questions. And so again, if you keep the basics good, you're going to show up. And what we're actually seeing as a component of that is, continuing that. Now you probably have to get more economical. I mean, the cost of content is kind of getting driven to zero. So if you're writing $300, $500,000 articles, you're probably not going to be able to scale at the level you need, because the second trend we're seeing there is so much more surface area for searches and queries. So our query volumes that we're seeing are exponential, because even though like Google and ChatGPT are different, they're inextricably kind of linked, right? So it really is total search volume.
Swimming in the same pond.
Yeah, totally. So I think the queries are going to increase, and so the strategic advantage, I think, is creativity is going to be rewarded, right? Because you're filling gaps. Because the thing that the LLMs don't know is individual unique experiences, stories, those sorts of things, and that gives a richer experience. So that's what's going on with SEO and that thing. And then email. Email, again, the efficiency of AI to just help you to take a large amount of information, distill it down to an engaging email, to build out sequences that are logical, that have some segmented personalization instead of kind of the classic just insert last name here, insert first name here, right? So I think those are kind of the early things on email, is like helping us look at data sets, segment better, then write sort of more engaging and proper email. So I think those are all the things. And again, not to get overwhelmed, do the basics right.
Yeah,
that's going to advantage you. And then start to understand AI by just buying a $20 subscription to ChatGPT and using it as part of your team.
Yeah. And always include the human element in that space as well. I
For
love
sure.
that because I mean it's pretty easy to spot, something that just completely generated, just through using these tools. But you said something that I wanted to focus on a little bit, and I I'm trying to frame this in a way that would not sound in any way offensive. But it's funny when you talk about email, I'm thinking, how many articles were written that said by 2020, 2025, whatever, email would be dead.
Yeah.
Just email is going to be dead. It has a short shelf life. But I'm thinking about when I hear like cold email campaigns, when I hear PPC, the same thoughts sometimes come into my mind that say, do these have a shelf life? Do these approaches, these strategies have a shelf life? So, PPC's been around for quite a while.
Yep.
So, but it still seems like there are companies like yours and others that are, hey, this is still our main focus. I mean, you obviously have to chase the algorithm changes, out
Yep.
there, whether it's LinkedIn, whether it's Google, whatever. But
Yep.
what is the future of PPC, and is there, do you see, can you prognosticate into the future that says, hey, this is going to be around for a while?
Yeah, I mean, I think the key thing is like the platforms may change, but the concept of paying to target or get in front, like that's as old as advertising, right? Is
Yeah.
to pay, whether you're buying an ad to be in a newspaper, to be in front of someone, is the same as buying an ad to be in front of a search result. So the platforms may change, the delivery may change, but ultimately the skills of targeting and putting a compelling message in front of a consumer that is somewhere
Mm.
is not going to change. So I mean, the big thing that like nobody's really talking about, like at some point, and we often say marketers ruin everything, right? At some point, marketers are going to be involved in the large language models, right? Like Chat GPT and the people using large, the end all be all monetization of that is not going to be a subscription to use a tool, right? At some
Mm.
point, we're going to have an opportunity to sort of, and again, this may ruin it, right? We're going to have an opportunity to buy our way into the system. And so those skill sets are going to be the same. And again, I think to some degree, digitally, there's only so many ways that you can deliver, right? So you can either get in front of some request, and in this case the model is the same, it's still an inquiry or a query, or you earn your way in with content, right?
Yeah.
And so those don't seem to be changing, so I think those disciplines are going to be the same. And then to the point of email, again, we've seen a lot of that, particularly in the consumer market, direct to consumer, but also in B2B. A lot of that messaging has transitioned or maybe is more effective via text.
Hmm.
But it's still email, right? We're
Yeah.
delivering a message and
Yeah.
we're trying to have a conversation with someone. So I think again, the platforms, the mediums change a little bit, but if you really boil it down, we're still trying to put a compelling message in front of a consumer and get them to take an action. And that those basic skill sets aren't changing. You just put them in a different place, or they have a slightly different format.
As you were talking, I mean, it's so funny how, as a podcast host, when you're listening to a guest, there are so many things that run through our minds because we probably all have ADHD anyway,
Yeah.
and we always chase squirrels. But I just pictured, an episode of Mad Men, when you were
Yeah.
talking about,
Yeah.
the 1960s, the cigarette advertisements or whatever. I'm thinking
Totally.
it is so true. I mean, it's the same thing, same song, different verse or whatever.
Yeah.
The whole
Well, and
idea.
there's a reason we love to have our little swipe files, and a lot of our swipe files are full of like, vintage, mid-century kind of advertising because it is so rich and interesting, and sometimes again that creativity and pulling the past forward, or bringing something back. So yeah, it definitely changes. You definitely have to be aware, and you always have to be sort of playing and testing things. But at the end of the day, like if you get the basics right, you're probably going to do pretty well for yourself.
Yeah, and I really appreciate the way you framed that, and just the idea of, hey, kind of think back to that Old Testament where it says, hey, that nothing new under the sun. It's kind of
Totally.
it's just recycle,
Yeah,
everything we've
yeah.
seen before.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, we're humans, we're emotional, we have needs and wants, and sometimes we confuse the two. And yeah, it's like our target is no different. It's just, again, different ways to reach them.
Before we jump into our speed round, which I really enjoy that part of our interview process, but I've got a couple of things that I want to touch on, just briefly, just give you a
Mhm.
chance to kind of share a little bit about this. But let's kind of really focus and hone in on just one or
Yep.
two things on each one of these. But number one, I mean, this is especially today. You pick up the news, you're looking at your favorite internet news source, and things. It's a tough market. It is.
Yep.
It seems like it's a tough market right now. So, what would you tell people? What are some really proven strategies to generate leads well in a tough market?
Yeah, I mean, I think these are the moments when a lot of times business owners, our customers, organizations, pause a little bit. They get nervous. They suspend things.
Mm,
And I know we as marketers say this over and over again. Like this is the time to leverage up marketing, right? Because we're going to have to do the hard work. People are not sort of coming in with demand. We're actually having to go out and convince them that it's okay. The markets, do this from time to time. So I think, kind of the most important thing right now, as marketers and as organizations that buy or leverage marketing services, is to know that like this is the time where we need to calm fears, we need to show value, and we need to do the hard work of moving and convincing people to buy our products or to do things during these volatile times, that probably still will advantage them, right? I mean, it
mhm.
allows them to buy low or continue
Yeah.
to keep their quality of life at a certain level. So yeah, I guess the closest answer is like this is the time for marketing. This if there's a time to invest in marketing, it's when things are a little bit unstable.
I love the way you frame it because I'm thinking about, if I was an investment advisor, it's the exact same,
Totally.
sometimes when's the best time to buy?
Yeah,
When the market's
fortunes are
down,
made in the financial crisis, right? I mean, it's
you
like
know, it is the best time.
yeah.
I kind of flip this a little bit, let's just prognosticate into the future. What do you see are some trends, the just trends, best practices, however you want to frame that, moving forward? What are some things that you can just kind of glimpse on the horizon now that you think are going to be really prevalent here in the next year or two?
Yeah, I think people didn't talk about this for a long time, but I think it's becoming a more reality. When Alexa came out, like people were like, "Oh, voice marketing and stuff like
Yeah.
this." I mean, just think about your own behavior and the behavior of your customers. One thing that I've seen is of the leads that get generated. So people that fill out forms, people that make inbound phone calls, 80 to 90% of those are happening on a mobile device, right? So
Mhm.
people are not in front of their computers as much anymore, particularly in the consumer environment, but even in the business to business. I just came from a conference where I was speaking, and usually out in the audience you'd see a whole bunch of laptops, open and people taking notes, and that's not there anymore. These people are just walking in, they got their mobile device. So, and how are we interacting with those mobile devices? We're having conversations with them now.
Mhm.
Like even like when people don't text message you probably even notice a change in your own text messages. The text messages you get are long. What are people doing? They're just popping it up and they're talking into
Absolutely.
their phone, right? So I think voice is going to be more prevalent,
Hmm.
and so we're going to have to account for that. I think our marketing is going to have to be more conversational,
Hmm.
because of that, because we are having conversations with these devices. And then the last part to kind of pull that thread out, I think at some point, and this is hard to believe, the mobile device will disappear, right? So at some point, I don't know if it's glasses, I don't know if it's earbuds or whatever, but at some point, like the device itself, in my mind, will completely disappear. And so computing will just be in the fabric of life. And so that's another thing as a marketer, we're really going to have to think hard about, because we've always been sitting in front of we've been relying on a screen, whether it's a billboard or a newspaper or a monitor or a mobile device. At some point, the device will disappear, I think, and so that's going to create another transformational challenge for us.
We're gonna have to circle back in about 18 months and and see just how close we are. I mean,
Yeah.
just how rapidly things change, in today's environment. It is really interesting to see, and it's kind of interesting just to kind of, um, imagine, what that would look like. I mean, I'm really tired of my Alexa telling me, like I'm having a conversation with my wife in the kitchen about, a kitchen product, and I look over there and I see it displayed. You can order this off Amazon right now if you want.
It's weighing into the
Yeah,
conversation.
that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, do you
Yeah.
really want that? You want this instead? Yeah.
Yeah. For
It's
sure.
even offering alternative suggestions, but yeah, it's just an exciting time to be in the marketing space. It really is. It's kind of like the Wild West in AI, but it is also, you see, and I like the way that you have framed this throughout the conversation. Just you kind of see there are still fundamentals at play that are still true. There are still pillars. There are still consistencies. There are still, even though the strategies might look a little different, the tools may look a little different, but there's fundamentals at play here. In basketball, you're still setting a screen, you're still taking a
Yep.
good shot, when you're open type thing. So
Yep.
it's interesting to hear you frame that. But I do want to shift right now, jump into our rapid fire round. I'm going to ask you just really quick. You're
Yep.
going to say seemingly disparate questions here, but I'm just going to ask you a question. Just tell me the first thing that comes to mind. Short, quick answers.
Yep.
Did you get along with your parents growing up?
I did actually had a really good relationship. I tended to be kind of the good kid. I was the firstborn,
Of
so we're
course you
always more
were.
compliant and terrified. So yeah, I had a really and continue to have a good relationship with my parents.
Yeah, I see. I was the baby, so I was the challenge to them.
Yeah, yeah. I
Love
have a
them dearly,
brother.
but
I
I
have a brother.
certainly
I know what you look like.
caused them to have gray hair. That's right. Do you have siblings?
Yes, I do. I've got a few brothers, so I've got three brothers.
Any pets? Family pets?
Yeah, we've transitioned from big dogs where we did German Shepherds and Dobermans down to little dogs where we got a Yorkie and a pug. So we like to travel more. Kids are out of the house, so I still love the German Shepherd, but yeah, little ones are easier.
But they yap more for sure. That's for
Yeah, well, my wife prefers them probably more than I do. I call them cats that care. So.
That
Uh,
is an apt description. On a typical business day, what time do you get up?
yeah, I get up early. I've always been an early guy. 6 o'clock, hit the gym, clears my brain.
Hmm.
That's my mental clarity. Some people meditate. I hit the gym. That's my meditation.
What time do you go to bed on a typical business day?
Yeah, pretty regimented. About 10 o'clock, I'll wind down and hit the bed.
Ideal vacation spot anywhere in the world. Money not an object.
Yeah, so I love to travel. So I do a lot of travel. Probably our favorite spot is Italy. We're getting
Mm.
ready to do that in June again. So Italy is probably the favorite of a lot of different places I've been.
Yeah, I'm a big Western Europe fan myself for sure. How does faith affect how you do business?
Yeah, it's central to me in particular. So I grew up in the South. I'm from Kentucky, so I love this question because it's kind of interesting. So in the South, it was just assumed,
Mm.
right? And then I went to college out west, and so it had a different dynamic. If you were a Christian in Colorado or California, you were on fire because you were like in the middle
You're
of
an
like no
outlier.
man's land,
That's
right?
right.
And then I moved back to the kind of the Midwest, Ohio and Michigan. I'm now in Michigan, and people here are just kind of apathetic.
Mm.
And so, but for me, it's always been a foundation. I've been a part of some church plants and that sort of thing directly. So it's always the center of everything. And as an entrepreneur, I've been at some pretty darn low spots. So some of
Mm.
my best testimonies are when I just kind of went down on my knees and just kind of gave up and turned it over to the big man. So yeah, it's been central to my whole journey.
If you were king for a day in the marketing climate and marketing kind of environment, what is one thing you would change?
Yeah, I say our number one competitor is really, and some of this is not always like devious, but are charlatans in the market. And
Mhm.
sometimes this is like an early entrepreneur that's trying to figure things out and getting it all wrong, or got the wrong advice and just like doing things. So, or sometimes it's people that have like, hey, I can make money, and it's deceptive and that sort of thing. So I just wish in the marketing, we really kind of looked at that top level. And the FCC kind of has this as like, make claims that you can support, right?
Yeah.
So just like more honesty in the system, more
Truth in
authenticity.
advertising.
Yeah, truth in advertising, more authenticity in the conversation.
Mm.
It honestly works better. So I would wish people would just, again, be a little bit more honest about the conversation and the interaction with consumers and with your clients.
That is by far the number one answer that we get when we do the rapid fire is really this idea is it's really just truth, it's authenticity, it is trust, it is stop the spam, stop the, the schemes, stop the,
Yeah,
just the whole idea of trying to trick somebody into doing something, just really an
yeah,
authentic approach and honest approach. I love that because I think the best people that are in this space believe that
yeah,
and try to walk that out, so it's just really cool. And as a host of a podcast in this space to ask that question and hear, experts in the field like yourself, say, hey, this is what we have to have,
yeah,
to build credibility in what we
yeah,
do. So thank
yeah,
you for just taking time today and just sharing your story. And there's so many other things that we could kind of catch up on and chase, but maybe that we'll have to save those for another day. But Bill, thank you for just sharing your expertise, sharing your stories, your thoughts and strategies, and just really helping marketing agencies grow and scale their business, which is really the primary purpose of trying to put this podcast on and have great, subject matter experts like yourself come on. So thank you again. Have a great weekend. Appreciate your help.
Hey, it's a true pleasure. I appreciate you having me, Kevin. And hey, this is a good business. Agency has done well for me, and I think we truly can provide a great service. So I love this business. Yeah. So thanks for having me.
Thanks again. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to another great episode of the Marketing Umbrella Podcast, where we provide the information you need from successful leading marketers to build and grow your digital marketing agency. To learn more, go to umbrellaus.com.